I was going through my pre-season content for the 2025 season when I realized that I never put out a 2026 way too early mock draft. So I don't know if we're in the way too early. I mean, we're definitely still in the way too early category for one of these drafts, but I figured I would give this one to you guys. So just before we get into this, there's a couple things. One, the first thing you'll probably notice is the draft order. The draft order is based off of my power rankings. So if you didn't see that video, I recommend you watch that, especially if you have any questions about the order that I came up with. So I figured I would kind of, use one video to do another. So that's where this draft order came from. This is based off my power rankings from 32 down to 1, obviously. 2, I'm not using Arch Manning in this mock draft because I truly think that Arch Manning is a player that is not going to declare for the 2026 draft. And until he gives me reason to believe otherwise, that's probably going to be a player that's left off of all of my mock drafts for the 2026 season. So let's just get those two things out of the way. And then 3, admittedly, I am familiar with every prospect on this board for the most part. I just haven't done a lot of my deep diving yet into these prospects. So this is based off of projection and based off of, what I know of these prospects up until this point. And then of course I have a couple that are here and there where I'm probably projecting players that aren't going to be first round picks or aren't the consensus first round picks super high. So let's get into it here. We have the New Orleans Saints at my number 1 pick, and maybe a surprise to some, obviously not PFF. If Arch Manning is not off the board, quick pro quo to my next video that's going to be coming out on the channel, my top 15 quarterbacks for the 2026 NFL draft up until this point. Cade Klubnik is my number 1 overall quarterback. I think he is a fantastic player. I think he brings a ton of athleticism and intangibles to the position. He got a heck of a lot better last year as well. I think he was 5th in the FBS in big time throws. And yes, I know that the New Orleans Saints drafted Tyler Shuck in the 2nd round. They have Spencer Rattler, who they drafted in the 5th round the year before that. They have Jake Hayner as well. But these are players that I just don't think are going to, when it's all said and done, are really going to be impactful. I'm not going to say, hey, we had the number 1 overall pick. Mickey Loomis and co aren't going to be like, yeah, well, we drafted a quarterback in the 2nd round last year, so that's going to prevent us from taking a quarterback number 1 overall, especially in this quarterback class where I do think if Arch Manning doesn't come out, I do think this class is a little bit lessened, I would say, but I still think it's a very, very solid quarterback draft class where we'll probably see 4 to 5, potentially even 6 quarterbacks go in the 1st round, depending on how the top 10 shakes out. So Klubnik is my quarterback 1 early on. And then my quarterback 2 here for the Cleveland Browns, I am taking a quarterback here at number 2 overall. I don't think the quarterback of the future is on the Cleveland Browns roster. Things could change, you never know, but based off of what I'm seeing up until this point, the 5 quarterbacks that are on the roster just don't inspire me as long-term solutions here. I'm going to go way down here. I think Fernando Mendoza is an absolute baller. This is not correct. He transferred to Indiana. Played Big Ten ball last year. I think that he was phenomenal. He's got a cannon of an arm. He places the ball in some immaculate places. 6'5", 220 pounds. This dude is an absolute baller, and I'm convinced he is going to be a quarterback, a franchise quarterback of the future for any NFL franchise. And in this case, it's going to be the Cleveland Browns. So I'm going to take Fernando Mendoza at number 2. As we always get those quarterbacks that, rise up the ranks as the preseason goes on. And I think Mendoza, not the preseason, the draft cycle. I think Fernando Mendoza, now playing at Indiana, taking over for Curtis Rourke, being under Curt Cignetti, I think is going to take another step forward and really just hone in on those intangibles that he possesses. At number 3, I have the Tennessee Titans here, and I think they easily need help off the edge. TJ Parker, JT. If you guys have watched previous videos of mine, you know that anytime that someone has the initials TJ, I always say JT before that. You could even go back to, I think it was my last video or the video before that. It might be the last video. I was talking about TJ Sanders, and I kept saying JT Sanders for the Buffalo Bills. I just keep saying it. But Parker, I think, is far and away the best edge prospect in the entire 2026 class. I know it's super early on, but he's a freak athlete. Great at 6'3", 255, 260 pounds. Unbelievable off the edge. I think the Tennessee Titans absolutely need help off the edge, especially after releasing Harold Landry. I love this like overhaul of this roster, replacing it with young players. I love what they're doing. I think the offense is going to be fun to watch. I think Cam Ward is going to be a very interesting rookie to follow, but I think they're still like a year away from being like a legitimate team, a contending team for a wild card spot, especially in the AFC. I think they do unfortunately do wind up with another top 5 pick, but with a plan at quarterback ahead. And I think Parker is going to be a big difference maker on the defensive side. The New York Giants, unfortunately, land at my number 4 spot. And you have your left tackle of the future, of the current and the future, lined up until I think it's 2029 in Andrew Thomas. And when he's healthy, he's one of the top 3 left tackles in football. I think the top tackle in this class is going to be a right tackle. And I think it's Francis Mauigoa is going to be your top tackle. You're 6'6", 320 pounds. Was part of one of the most dynamic offenses in football last year. Fantastic in pass protection, really good in run blocking as well. Someone that's going to steadily improve this upcoming season as well. I think you solidify the offensive line, especially if Jackson Dart is your future. I think you solidify the offensive line now. I know a lot of people are going to say, wow, that's kind of crazy, taking a tackle when your left tackle was already, I believe Andrew Thomas was a top 4 pick. I think he was the 4th overall pick. You're going to take another tackle with a 4th overall pick. Yes, I am. And that's going to be now Mauigoa here. I think he's far and away the best tackle early on in the pre-draft process. Then you have my New York Jets at number 5 here. And if you're picking at number 5, that means that the season did not go well with Justin Fields. That means that you're going to be looking for a quarterback. Now, 2 quarterbacks off the board inside the top 5, a quarterback that I am quite enamored with, and I'm very, very excited to see how his 2025-26 season is going to shake out, is going to be Lenora Sellers, a massive player. So you could argue that Lenora Sellers is probably just because you look at Justin Fields, was he 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", 225 pounds, incredible athlete. That's really what you're getting with Lenora Sellers, with about 20 extra pounds on him. Same player, but I think Lenora Sellers, whereas Justin Fields is super late to his throws sometimes, I think Lenora Sellers throws with really great anticipation. He's got a rifle of an arm, and I think that this would be the type of quarterback that Aaron Glenn and Darren Moogie are looking as their quarterback. So I'm thinking Lenora Sellers at number 5 here. At the New England Patriots, and for a team that I think won 2025 draft, I think they get their pick at number 6 here, and they get a absolute steal at number 6 in Peter Woods. I think Peter Woods I hate comparing young players that aren't established in the NFL to players that are established in the NFL, but sometimes it's really the only way that we can make a quick connection. Here, I think that Peter Woods is the closest thing that we've seen since Jalen Carter a couple of years ago come out. Just someone that is completely disruptive on the interior, just a monster in both facets of the game. He's a player that I think is just super exciting overall, and he's going to really improve the interior of that defensive line for the New England Patriots. And number 7 overall, probably the number 1 overall prospect on a lot of people's boards, comes off Caleb Downs. You're just adding a phenomenal overall player that really has no weaknesses in his game to this Carolina Panthers secondary. They've invested over the last couple of years quite heavily in Bryce Young. They drafted Xavier Legette in the first round last year. This year, they drafted Tediora McMillan in the first round. So you're doubling down there. The defense is the side of the ball that really needs work now. Caleb Downs is arguably not only the best defensive player in the class, probably the number 1 overall player in the class at number 7 here. And at number 8, you have the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have a really big offseason coming up. I'm fully anticipating, with this selection that I'm making early on, I'm fully anticipating that Anthony Richardson takes that step forward as the Colts franchise quarterback. And now you have to look to protect him. Bernard Ryman is a free agent. Braden Smith is a free agent. That offensive line suffered a couple of really, really big departures in Will Fries and Ryan Kelly as well. So it's already on the fritz to begin with. Now you have your 2 bookend starting tackles as free agents going into 2026. I think you have to draft one. Caden Proctor is someone that is very, very interesting in the pre-draft process. Huge player, 6'7", 360 pounds. does come, apparently, I haven't heard this other than a couple other places, does come with character concerns, but I think he's a phenomenal overall player that can start at either left or right tackle as long as he refines his game this upcoming year. But yeah, I mean, who isn't enamored with a tackle that can move like Hayden Proctor at 6'7", 360 pounds? At number 9, I have the Las Vegas Raiders here. Kind of the same deal. They've invested heavily in the offensive side of the ball the last couple drafts. I think it's time. And their defense is actually looking kind of okay on paper over the last couple years. They've drafted well in the mid to late rounds, especially in 2025. 2024, they got DeCamerion Richardson as well, who is a great pickup for them. I think that it goes fully defensive in this, and I'm going with Anthony Hill from Texas. I think Anthony Hill is a phenomenal overall player, a dynamic athlete, and if you look at the middle of this Raiders defense, they're truly missing that captain, that leader, that driving force of the defense. And I think Anthony Hill Jr. is going to be one of those players. Look, a linebacker and a safety inside the top 9. When was the last time you ever saw that? But Anthony Hill Jr. is absolutely legit. And I think that he is someone that is going to be placed all over the defense. And I think the Raiders desperately need a player like that on their roster right now. At number 10, I have the Chicago Bears. And I'm going to go with an edge rusher here at number 10. A lot that you could choose from. This is a super deep class. Ruben Bain Jr., Keldrick Falk, LJ Overton, Tyreek Sapp, Mikhail Kamara as well. I mean, these guys just, you can go all the way down here. Look at this. Cassius Howell, Eric O'Neill. I mean, these play Trey Moore all the way down here as well. There's some great players here. But in the top 10 here, I'm going to go with Keldrick Falk. This is a heavier defensive end, someone that maybe in those third and long situations can reduce inside and give you that little bit of pass rushing juice from an interior defensive line standpoint. I believe Keldrick Falk is closer to that 290-pound range where you have your Montez Sweat on one side, who is that speed rusher, that 245, 255-pound edge rusher. Now you're looking for a little bit more size, a little bit more meat, someone that could set the edge appropriately, and that's exactly what Keldrick Falk can bring in. And I'm surprised. I know that Ben Johnson is an offensive-minded coach. I'm surprised they went with as many offensive selections as they did, and they let a lot of those edge rushers go off the board. But I think that is the whole defensive line is going to be, something that needs to be overhauled in the next couple drafts, in my opinion, for the Chicago Bears. And I think Falk is a great. Well, opened it up there. I think Falk is a good place to start for them. At number 11 here, we're going to go with the best corner on the board. Just throw a dart at this roster for the Miami Dolphins, and there is a need somewhere. The offensive line isn't totally solidified just yet, although it is looking up. The defensive line, the selection of Kenneth Grant, I absolutely love that. Pass rushing, Jalen Phillips is going to be a free agent. That could be something that they address too with this crazy pass rushing class. I think they go with the secondary here. I think Jermod McCoy is far and away the best cornerback in this class. This is a interesting class for me. I think it's really top heavy. I think it's really good. You're going to see a lot of corners go in that top 50 range, and then you're not going to see a lot go until maybe like day 3. But I think Jermod McCoy is the best player in the secondary, best corner in the class up until this point, and I think that he makes a lot of sense for this Miami Dolphins team. And then at number 12, you have the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think regardless of what happens here, I think this has got to be a quarterback. We're still up until this point in the offseason. I'm recording this on June 4th, where there is no sign of Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're still looking at Will Howard, and we're still looking at Mason Rudolph as your top 2 choices. I think regardless of what happens, even if they do sign Aaron Rodgers, they need a quarterback of the future. A lot of different ways that you can go here. I'm going to go with Drew Aller. I think he kind of fits exactly what this Pittsburgh Steelers team is looking for. He's got a good offensive line in front of him. He's going to have at least one good weapon in DK Metcalf in front of him. They have to figure that out too. This could very well be a wide receiver, depending on what they do at the quarterback position, depending on what they do at the tight end position. Pat Freiermuth, I saw a couple things that they were looking to trade for Jonnu Smith. I do think regardless, you need to get a future franchise quarterback. I don't know. Some people might sit here and argue that Will Howard is that guy. I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket that a 6th-round rookie is going to be my quarterback of the future. It could happen. I'm not saying it can't, but I think Drew Aller brings incredible intangibles. I'm not as big of a fan, I will say, as a lot of other people are of Drew Aller. I think he's good. I don't know if he's top 12 worthy, but this is me picking with these teams in mind, not just me. I mean, I don't know if he'd even be a first round quarterback if it was up to me right now, but I think Aller makes a ton of sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to take him here at 12. At number 13, yeah, I know this is going to be a lazy pick. Some people might think it's a lazy pick, but Jeremiah Love is a fantastic overall running back. I thought that if he declared last year, if he could have, he would have been the number 2 overall running back behind Ashton Jeanty. I think he's fantastic. Vision, speed, overall power, just frame, everything you name it. I think he is awesome. I think he's just like a 1B to what Ashton Jeanty was this year. I think he's fantastic. I think despite drafting Jaden Blue in round 5, signing Miles Sanders, signing Tavion Williams, I don't think that really matters. I think you need a running back in the future, and this is a team that has never been shy about drafting a running back early, and I think Jeremiah Love makes a ton of sense here for the Dallas Cowboys. At number 14, you have the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm going to go with, I'll say this. I'm actually looking at my paper that I have everything written down on right now. The only wide receiver drafted in the first round is going to come from the Arizona Cardinals here. You have Marvin Harrison Jr., you have Trey McBride. They've invested a ton over the last couple of years in the defense. I think it's time, if Kyler Murray is your guy going forward past this year, I think you invest heavily in the wide receiver position, because outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., there's really not much. Michael Wilson is good. I think Michael Wilson is more of a wide receiver 3. You have Zay Jones and a couple other guys too that I just don't think are going to work out. I think Jordan Tyson early on is wide receiver 1, and he doesn't have to go too far away. He's got to go from Arizona State to Arizona. So he doesn't have to go anywhere really. But yeah, Jordan Tyson is someone that broke out in a big way in the last 10 games of the season with Sam Leavitt as his starting quarterback. Who's to say that he doesn't build on that momentum with Leavitt as his quarterback this year as well? Tyson, I think in the first, I don't remember how many games Arizona State played last year, but in the first few games, Tyson was kind of not a non-factor. And then those last 10 games, I believe he had like 800 receiving yards, and he really, really picked it up. He was a phenomenal player for them. And I think he's going to continue that progression, and he's going to be the first wide receiver taken off the board at number 14 for me. At number 15, this is not the Los Angeles Rams initial pick. This is the Atlanta Falcons pick here. And at number 15, they're playing with house money. You're drafting with house money. I'm going to go get my Matthew Stafford successor, because I don't know how many years Matthew Stafford has left. Why not get a quarterback that kind of is this year's version of what Matthew Stafford is? I think Garrett Nussmeier is awesome. I think Nuss is, if he was a little bit more mobile, because he's really not, if he was a little bit less of a pocket passer, I would say he would probably be my quarterback 2 or 3. He's just kind of anchored to the pocket. He can move around, don't get me wrong, but he offers nothing in terms of running the football. And that could be okay, because you could have an offense catered around him. And that's exactly what the Rams kind of have with Matthew Stafford right now. Garrett Nussmeier is a no-nonsense, no-fear gunslinger. And that is a quarterback. I think that's a match made in heaven. The LA Rams, Sean McVay, and Garrett Nussmeier is a match made in heaven. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars pick, which is the Cleveland Browns, who have already selected their star quarterback of the future in Fernando Mendoza. At number 16 here, I'm going to take Spencer Fano. This is a player that I think I'm a big fan of taking a quarterback and either taking a wide receiver with the pick after, taking a tackle pick. You want that protect. The on the outside, Todd Jones, they have Jack, a lot of going forward. Spencer Fano is a player that has experience on both sides, on the right and on the left. He's super athletic, a little light in the bridges, 6'5", 302 pounds. I'd like to see him beef up just a little bit more to play at the NFL level, but his technique is fantastic. He's a really good overall player. I think Utah have 2 great tackles. We'll get to Caleb Lomo in a minute, but Spencer Fano is a player that I enjoy watching quite a bit, and I think that this would be a great investment long-term, especially if you're drafting your quarterback of the future. At number 2, you want to take a tackle there. At number 17, I have Avion Terrell, the brother of A.J. Terrell, who also played for Clemson. A lot of Clemson Tigers in this first round. I wouldn't be surprised if they're a dark horse for the college football, not only for the college football playoff, but to win the entire thing. They have a ton of NFL talent on their team, and Terrell is a very, very tenacious player, someone that could not only play in the slot, plays on the outside, defends the run very, very well. He's a player that I think the Cincinnati Bengals absolutely need on their defense. This is the 33rd ranked defense in the NFL at this point. I think the Bengals really need an upgrade at the cornerback position, and I think Terrell is an excellent upgrade for them. At number 18, you have the San Francisco 49ers, and this is where is he? Where is that guy? I just mentioned him. Caleb Lomu here from Utah is going to be my pick as well. Where is he? He's way down here. Yeah, Caleb Lomu here is a player that Spencer Fano gets the praise for the Utah Utes, but Lumu is someone who is quite literally developing into quite a gem at the left tackle position, and the San Francisco 49ers are still in search for a successor, Trent Williams. So Caleb Lumu is going to be that pick for me at number 18. It's time that we invest some true draft capital in that offensive line. They did a phenomenal job of overhauling that defensive line. Michael Williams in the first round. They got other guys in the middle rounds, or where they get CJ West was a big pickup that I really liked what they did. And who else did they get? They got Alfred Collins, I believe, as well, if I'm trying to remember correctly. But they really, really overhauled their defensive line, and I love what they did. For the Seattle Seahawks here, I'm going with an edge rusher here at number 19. Again, a little bit of a surprise, but a player that I think is going to absolutely blow up over the course of the season. That's Mateo Uiagalelei. I don't know if I said that right. I say it a different way every single time, but a phenomenal player overall, sets the edge very well. 7 sacks last year for Uiagalelei. I think I said it right. I think I nailed it this time around. Uiagalelei. Let's try and say that 5 times fast. Try and even comment that 5 times fast, Uiagalelei. But yeah, someone that very quietly had 7 sacks last year. I think he's going to break out in a big way for this Oregon Ducks defense. Someone that I think could even potentially get into double-digit sacks here. This is a guy that PFF have as their 52nd ranked prospect. I think he could very comfortably be inside that top 20, maybe even inside that top 15 when it's all said and done. At pick number 20, you have the Minnesota Vikings here that are truly relying on JJ McCarthy to not only develop, but to mature very, very fast overall. But there was one area that they just not ignored. Well, I guess you could say ignored with their draft pick or with their draft, but I really thought that they were going to upgrade the secondary, and they just didn't. I think AJ Harris is a very, very technically sound player. He's not someone that's going to completely blow you out of the water, but I think out of all the corners early on in this draft class, he is the safest pick. I've been wrong on my evaluations on Penn State corners before. I was also someone very early on in the 2024 cycle who thought Kalen King was a first round pick, and he was just a product of Joey Porter Jr. on the other side. But I think AJ Harris can play all over the defense, technically sound, good speed, doesn't violently use his hands. He's someone that is just a very, very heady football player, very smart, good football IQ, good size as well. Someone that I think, especially if Brian Flores continues to be the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, this is someone that I think he could mold into whatever he wants him to be. So you have the Los Angeles Chargers here at number 21, and I have Reuben Bain Jr. going to them. Again, another one. This is whereas maybe the last couple of years we've seen the edge rushers faster, quicker off the edge, more twitch. This is the big 4-3 base defense, meat and potatoes defensive ends here. Bain Jr. is someone that's going to sit between 270, 285 pounds. He's someone that I think can reduce inside in this Jesse Minter 3-4 odd front defense. And I love what he could bring to the table. They drafted Jamari Caldwell. That's another beast of a player that they can put in the middle of their defense. But Khalil Mack is not getting any younger. Tui Pelotu on the other side is a good player, but you need to beef up your defense a little bit more. And Bain Jr. is a player that I think, if he's still here at 21, would be a phenomenal pickup for this Los Angeles Chargers team. So, sorry about that. What's going on here? There we go. Okay, at number 22, you have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this is maybe where I'm throwing some feelers out there for this one. I got another linebacker going in the first round here, and we're going to have to look quite far down here for Sonny Styles. Listen, I've been projecting a successor for Levante David for like 3 years now. I think this might be it. I know that they have Servassier Dennis that they like a lot. I think Sonny Styles is a player that is super exciting, especially for a defensive minded coach of Todd Bowles' caliber. He's someone that lit up Ohio State as a safety his first year. Now he transitioned to linebacker. He missed quite a few tackles last year in his first season as a linebacker, but 6'4, 235 pounds with that athleticism. I'm willing to deal with the missed tackles last year. I think he's going to clean it. Listen, you're learning a new position at the collegiate level. That's really, really tough. He's got a year under his belt. I fully expect him to blossom. And with that athletic profile, I would not be surprised if Sonny Styles is a first-round pick. This is a player that I would love to see on a Todd Bowles-led defense here. At number 23, you have the Houston Texans. Kind of easy for me to see where the Houston Texans were going to go. They drafted Ariante Ursary in the second round. They traded up for him here. That's someone that I think is going to translate best as a right tackle or maybe even a guard at the next level. Isaiah World is a player that I like quite a bit. Very, very athletic player. He's going to get his flowers. It says Nevada here, but he did transfer to Oregon, so he's going to go the Josh Connerly route. But World is a technically sound player who's got a ton of athleticism, has experience at both left and right tackle. So that gives you quite a bit of I'm all about offensive line versatility, if you guys couldn't tell. And Isaiah World is someone that brings a ton of that to the table. I think that this offensive line is good enough to get the Houston Texans through this year, and that's about it. You have Cam Robinson, you have Laken Tomlinson. They've signed a couple piecemeal players that are only going to be 1 year stopgaps. I think Isaiah World is going to be a player that it will be awesome for them. At 24, you have the Denver Broncos here, and I'm going to go with an edge rusher. This is a team that doesn't really have that many needs, to be quite honest with you, as long as RJ Harvey develops into what they want him to be. But LJ Overton is a player that I like quite a bit as, again, one of those odd front defensive ends that could reduce inside, could put his hand in the dirt and set the edge from the interior. I'm a big fan of his game. I think he had only 3.5 or 4 sacks last year, but this is a player that sets the edge very, very well, a very athletic player for his size, and I think that he would be a great addition to the interior of this Denver Broncos defense here. At number 25, the LA Rams have gotten away with kind of having a worse for wear secondary for quite some time. I think that all changes here. I think you've got to go after some secondary players, and D'Angelo Pons is a player that I like quite a bit out of Indiana. He's a player that's only 5'9", 179, 180 pounds. He plays on that boundary, and he plays on that boundary quite well. He also could play in the slot. He's a first guy in, last guy out type of player. He's someone that's going to give you his absolute all on every single snap, and that is a feisty pit bull type of player that I think the LA Rams truly need in their secondary. So I'm going to take D'Angelo Pons here at number 25. At number 26, I have the Green Bay Packers here, and I'm going to go with a corner. I think corner long-term is a little, I'm not bleak, I shouldn't say. It's a little hairy for the Green Bay Packers. And I like Mansour Delaney. I like what he could bring to the table. Transferred from Virginia Tech. He's going to be at LSU, so he's going to play some prime ball. I think he has length, fantastic range. 6'1", 6'2", around that 185, 190 pound mark. He's got length, great overall athlete. I think he's really going to show out. You know, Virginia Tech is a big time school, but they don't get the coverage that LSU gets. I think Delaney is going to be someone that makes quite a name for himself in his new role at LSU. Moving on to number 27 here, you have the Washington Commanders, another team that didn't really address the edge rushing position like I thought they would in the draft. I'm going to go with Mikhail Kamara. This is a player, 6'1", 265 pounds, maybe a little undersized in terms of the height, but man, does this guy bring it from the edge rushing position. 10 sacks last year, 7 sacks the year before. Is this going to be, I just realized, is this going to be 3 Indiana Hoosiers in the first round? What was the last time the Indiana Hoosiers had more than one player selected in the first round? But yeah, I don't care where they play. Mikhail Kamara is an absolute baller. This is a player that in my way too early prospects that you need to know for the 2026 NFL draft video that I released a few weeks ago. He was my pick from the edge rushing position. Awesome player, great motor, great run defender as well. This is someone that I think would be a really nice addition to that Quinn led defense. And he's a great player. He truly is. It'll be interesting to see how he deals with not having CJ West next to him. That'll be a big factor as well. But the tape speaks for itself. He's a complete disruptor off that edge. I'm not worried about him. At number 28, I have the Kansas City Chiefs, and I have them taking Davison Igbinosun here from Ohio State. He's probably going to be down here. Yeah, here he is. Davison Igbinosun here. I love the physicality. That's the biggest thing. I will go out on a limb and say that Igbinosun is probably the most physical man-to-man corner in the draft class. That might not play long term. Maybe he could project better as a safety. But I love the tenacity. I love the physicality. He's very, very handsy. Could get him penalized at the NFL level, but I'm going out on a limb here and saying that his just overall physicality, his frame, and his play style is going to get him drafted a lot higher than maybe his overall speed and talent would indicate. But he's a really good overall player, and this Kansas City Chiefs secondary is kind of lacking a playmaker outside of Trent McDuffie, and I think that Igbinosun could be that player. At number 29, do you have the Detroit Lions? No, I am not drafting Jake Slaughter here, if that's what you were wondering. I'm going to go to the edge here. I do believe that Jake Slaughter would be a great addition, especially since the Frank Ragnow retirement. But hear me out here. I think Miles Frazier or Tate Ratledge is going to be more than capable of taking over that center role. Probably Miles Frazier over Tate Ratledge. They drafted Tate Ratledge quite high. I think he is. And they have Christian Mahogany. Don't forget about that as well. So they have a plan in place. There must have been whispers about Frank Ragnow retiring before the draft because they went with two great, versatile interior offensive linemen towards the end. Tyreek Sapp is going to be the pick here for me. I think Sapp, again, is one of those heavy-handed, thick paws defensive ends that the Detroit Lions like. Aiden Hutchinson on one side, I'm very excited to see what he's going to be able to do coming back from that devastating Achilles injury. But I think Sapp is a player that, again, this is another team that I was kind of surprised didn't go after a defensive end a little bit earlier in the draft. I know that they drafted Tyleik Williams very, very early. I think it was, 28th overall or 29th overall in the first round. That is someone that's going to play very, very nicely to Aleem McNeil. And I think if they double down on another defensive lineman in Tyreek Sapp, I think it's going to complete a quite fearsome foursome for them for the foreseeable future. So Sapp is going to be my pick here at number 29. At number 30, this is where Jake Slaughter comes off the board. A lot of interior offensive linemen are free agents for the Buffalo Bills, that being especially their starting center in Connor McGovern. And I will be honest with you, even though McGovern is a pretty darn good center, for the most part, for the price, I think Jake Slaughter is a freak athlete for the center position. And I think that he is a massive upgrade over Connor McGovern. And this Bills offensive line is arguably top 10 every single year. Imagine adding someone like Jake Slaughter to this offensive line. That is a proposition that I'm not going to be willing to part with right now. Jake Slaughter is going to be my pick there. The final two here at number 31, the Baltimore Ravens. This is a homer pick. I'm a huge fan of this player. I think he's going to make a ton of noise in the pre-draft process. This is a really good, let me just say, this is a really good interior defensive line draft. Maybe not first round players outside of Peter Woods and, spoiler alert, Dante Corleone is going to be my pick. Big citrus right here at number 78, Iowa State. He's awesome. Rashawn Benny is a good player. Caleb Banks, Tim Keenan, Zane Durant. These are all awesome players on day two. I just think that Dante Corleone is I thought he was going to be a day two prospect if he declared this year. Dante Corleone is such a consistent player on both in run defending and pass rushing. I just can't give that up. I think Corleone's a fantastic overall player, and I'm going to take him here for the Baltimore Ravens, who, don't look now, do need some interior defensive line help after this season. And then at number 32 here, I'm going to take the long-term replacement for Lane Johnson here. I'm going to take Jennings Dunker here from Iowa. Just a big, nasty, mean mauler from the right tackle position. He might not play right away, but this is a player that I think fits the mold of a Howie Roseman offensive lineman. And we know that Howie Roseman wins and loses in the trenches. I think it's probably about time, especially with the losses over time of the offensive linemen. The big loss this season being Mekhi Becton. Now you had to replace him. Lane Johnson, someone that's getting up there in age, and he's still class, don't get me wrong, but I think having a successor waiting is never a bad thing. So Dunker is going to be the last pick of this first round here for my way too early 2026 mock draft. So let me know what you guys think about this mock draft in the comment section below. Let me know if there's a player that you think should be a first round pick that I didn't have. Here we go. Here's our here. I just want to take a look. Oh, so it was only three? It's only three Clemson Tigers. I felt like it was so many more. But regardless, yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed, and hope I see you in the next one.